The invitation came through our family group chat, my mother's perfectly worded message dripping with concerned disappointment. Emergency family meeting. Thursday, 7 p.m. Alexandra needs our help with her situation. My situation? That's what they'd been calling my decision to quit my prestigious consulting job and start my own company. 2 years of subtle jabs, worried phone calls, and not-so-subtle hints about real jobs with actual benefits. I sat in my car outside my parents' colonial-style house, the same one I'd grown up in, where success was measured in Ivy League degrees and corporate titles. My sister Emma's Range Rover sat in the circular driveway, next to Dad's Mercedes and Mom's BMW. My Toyota Corolla looked decidedly out of place, exactly how they saw me these days. My phone buzzed. Another message from Marcus, my CFO. Forbes article goes live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You ready for this? I texted back. Perfect timing. Family intervention starts at 7. His response was immediate. Savage. Want me to send a car to rescue you? No need. Some things are worth waiting for. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. No designer clothes tonight. Just a simple black blazer over a white shirt, minimal makeup, hair pulled back neatly. Let them think I couldn't afford better. It made the coming revelation sweeter. The door opened before I could knock. Mom stood there in her channel suit, perfect makeup not quite hiding her frown lines. Alexandra, darling, you're late. By 2 minutes, Mom. Details matter in business, dear. She ushered me inside. Something you might want to consider. The living room was set up like a corporate intervention. Dad in his power position by the fireplace, Emma and her husband James on the leather sofa, Mom's sister, Aunt Patricia, in the wingback chair. They'd even called in reinforcements. Ally. Emma air-kissed my cheek. Love the blazer. H&M. Thrift store, actually. I watched her try to hide her horror. Sustainable fashion. Very on trend. Dad cleared his throat. Let's get started. We're here because we're worried about you, Alexandra. About my situation? I took the least comfortable chair, deliberately facing them all. About your choices, Mom corrected. 2 years ago, you had everything. Junior partner track at McKinsey. That lovely penthouse apartment. William. Ah, yes, William. The investment banker they'd practically planned my wedding to, before I called it off to start my company. And now, Dad gestured vaguely, living in that tiny apartment, driving that old car, working on some, what do you call it? Tech startup, James supplied helpfully. Though startup implies growth potential. He smiled, all teeth, and MBA confidence. I took a look at your sector. The market's saturated. No room for new players without serious capital backing. I bit back a smile. James, who tried to get his own startup funded 3 times before falling back on his trust fund. James, who had no idea he'd been pitching to one of my subsidiary investment firms last month. James, who'd been rejected. Again. We're just trying to help, Emma added. There's no shame in admitting something isn't working. McKinsey would take you back in a heartbeat. Actually, Aunt Patricia chimed in. Barbara's daughter just got promoted to partner there. Youngest female partner in their history. She paused meaningfully. That could have been you. I checked my watch. 7:43 p.m. The Forbes article would drop in 17 minutes. You haven't even told us what your company actually does, Mom complained. All this secrecy, these long hours, and what do you have to show for it? Dad stood, assuming his CEO stance, the same one he'd used for countless boardroom presentations. We're here to discuss your failing company and plan your next steps. No more avoiding the reality. Emma's phone chimed. She glanced at it, then did a double take. Her perfectly maintained composure cracked. "Oh my God," she whispered, then louder. "Why is your face on Forbes' 30 Under 30 list?" The room froze. Mom's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. James grabbed Emma's phone. "That's impossible." He scrolled frantically. "This can't be." Alexandra Bennett, 28, founder and CEO of Neurotech Solutions. Valued at. This has to be a mistake. $2 billion, I supplied calmly. That's the current valuation after our last funding round. Though that number's a bit outdated now. Dad sank back into his chair. $2 billion? Would you like to know what my company does now? I pulled out my tablet, opening our investor presentation. Neurotech Solutions develops AI-driven adaptive learning systems. We're revolutionizing how machines process and respond to complex data. That tiny apartment I live in, it's actually the smallest unit in a building I own. That old Toyota. I bought it because it's practical and reliable, like all good investments should be. Mom's wine glass trembled. But you never said anything. You never asked. You were too busy lamenting my failure to notice my success. I stood up, straightening my thrift store blazer. Our technology is being implemented by major tech companies worldwide. That's why I've been working such long hours. That's why I've been secretive. And that's why, in about 2 minutes, Forbes is running a feature article about how a 28-year-old woman built a multi-billion-dollar tech empire while her family thought she was failing. Emma's phone kept buzzing, notifications pouring in as the article went live. James looked like he'd swallowed something sour. Aunt Patricia was already dialing, probably calling Barbara about her suddenly less impressive daughter. $2 billion, Dad repeated, shell-shocked. Actually, I checked my phone as Marcus's message came through. Make that $3 billion. We just closed another acquisition. I'd tell you more, but I have a video interview with CNBC in an hour. They're doing a special on disruptive tech leaders. The silence was deafening. Then Mom spoke, her voice small. But why didn't you tell us? I looked around the room at their shocked faces, their shattered assumptions, their crumbling certainty about who I was and what I could achieve. Because sometimes, I said, gathering my things, the best way to succeed is to let people underestimate you. It's amazing how much you can accomplish when no one's watching. My phone buzzed again. That's my car. Unlike my Toyota, this one's actually expensive. Comes with the whole Forbes photo shoot thing. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Emma? That startup James pitched last month. The one rejected by Bennett Ventures. That's my investment firm. Better luck next time. I left them there, surrounded by their luxury brands and conventional success, while outside, a sleek black car waited to take me to my next interview. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's letting them realize that they never really knew you at all. And I was just getting started. The CNBC interview was just the beginning. By midnight, my phone had exploded with messages. Old classmates suddenly remembering our close friendship. Distant relatives claiming they always believed in me. And most tellingly, a series of increasingly desperate texts from my family. Mom, Alexandra, please call us. We need to talk. Emma? OMG, Ally. Why didn't you tell me? I'm your sister. James, about that pitch. Perhaps we could discuss over lunch. Dad, I don't understand. You had all this success and kept it secret. From your own family? I ignored them all, focusing instead on the message from Marcus. Stocks up 12% after the Forbes piece. Tokyo markets opening strong. Ready for tomorrow's board meeting? The next morning, I walked into Neuratech's headquarters, a sleek glass tower in the heart of downtown, my name discreetly etched on the cornerstone. The security guard nodded respectfully. Good morning, Ms. Bennett. My executive assistant, Maya, met me at the elevator. Your family's been calling the office since 6 a.m. Your mother tried to charm her way past reception, but security followed protocol. I smiled. Of course they did. Any other surprises? Your sister Emma posted on LinkedIn about her brilliant tech entrepreneur sister and tagged you. PR wants to know how to handle it. No response necessary. Let her chase the connection. My office occupied the top floor, but I designed it to be invisible from the street. Privacy glass, minimal signage. The space inside was modern but understated. Clean lines, practical furniture, walls covered in whiteboards filled with code and complex algorithms. The morning news played silently on multiple screens. Tech wonderkind Alexandra Bennett disrupts AI market. Neuratech Solutions, the stealth giant that's revolutionizing machine learning. Young CEO built billion-dollar empire in secret. A knock at my door interrupted my news scanning. Ms. Bennett, your 9 a.m. is here. I turned, expecting my scheduled venture capital meeting. Instead, there stood William, my ex-fiancé, the investment banker my parents had never forgiven me for leaving. Alexandra, he said, attempting his old charming smile. You look successful. I look exactly the same as when you called my startup dreams cute and admirable. I stayed seated. How did you get on my calendar? He shifted uncomfortably. Your mother might have mentioned you had offices here. I thought, given our history, I cut in. You should remember that I don't appreciate people who underestimate me. I never. You said, and I quote, tech is a man's world, darling. Stick to consulting where they appreciate diversity hires. I pressed the intercom. Maya, please escort Mr. Harrison out and update security protocols. As he was led away, my actual 9 a.m. arrived. Sarah Chen, the notorious venture capitalist known for backing unicorn startups. Entertaining morning? She asked, nodding toward William's retreating figure. Just clearing out old misconceptions. I pulled up our presentation. Shall we discuss the future instead of the past? The meeting with Sarah went brilliantly, but it was just a warm-up for what came next. At noon, I had a board meeting, my first since the Forbes article dropped. The boardroom was full when I entered. Our investors, mostly older men who'd initially doubted me, now sat up straighter when I walked in. Funny how a few $1 billion changes people's posture. Before we begin, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table, let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, the Forbes article was strategic. Yes, the timing was deliberate. And no, this doesn't change anything about how we operate. Marcus, my CFO, pulled up our quarterly numbers. The growth charts looked like mountain ranges. Steep, impressive, undeniable. As you can see, I continued, our decision to operate in stealth mode while building our technology base has paid off. We're not just ahead of the market. We are the market. One of our early investors, A man who'd once suggested I bring in a more experienced CEO cleared his throat. The numbers are impressive, but the publicity changes things. Your family. My family is irrelevant to this company's operations. I pulled up another slide. What is relevant is our next move. Project Nexus. The room fell silent as I outlined our new AI architecture, technology that would make our current success look like a warm-up. Halfway through my presentation, Maya slipped me a note. Your sister's in the lobby. Says she's not leaving until you talk to her. I kept presenting, but sent a quick message to security. 5 minutes later, Emma was escorted to our smallest conference room, the one with the uncomfortable chairs. After the board meeting, I took my time reviewing contracts before finally heading down to meet her. She'd been waiting 2 hours, her perfect blowout slightly wilted, her Prada bag clutched like a shield. Really, Ally? She burst out as I entered. You couldn't have security tell them who I am. Your own sister. They know exactly who you are. I sat down. That's why they followed protocol. She deflated slightly. Mom's crying, you know. Dad hasn't gone to work. They feel betrayed. Betrayed? I raised an eyebrow. By what? My success? My independence? Or the fact that they can't take credit for it? It's not like that. We're family. We should have been part of this. Like you made me part of your life? All those family dinners where you and James talked about your achievements. Those charity galas where Mom introduced you as my successful daughter and me as Alexandra. She's finding herself. Emma flinched. That's not fair. We didn't know. Because you never asked. You were too busy feeling superior to actually see what I was building. And now, she gestured around. Now that we know, can't we start over? James would love to collaborate. Ah, yes, James. I pulled out my tablet, opening his pitch history. 3 failed startups, 2 SEC warnings for questionable trading practices, and a trust fund that's dwindling faster than his excuses. That James. Her face reddened. How did you? I know everything about everyone who tries to do business with my company, including the fact that he's been bad-mouthing me to potential investors for 2 years. Amateur hour, I believe he called it. Emma's designer bag slipped from her fingers. He wouldn't. The recordings are quite clear. I stood up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to run. Wait, she grabbed my arm. What do you want? An apology? Fine, I'm sorry. We're all sorry. Just don't shut us out. I looked at her perfectly manicured hand on my blazer sleeve, the same blazer she'd mocked last night. I don't want anything from you, Emma. That's the point. I built all of this without you, without our parents, without anyone's approval or support. And that's exactly how I'll continue. But what about family? Family? I smiled sadly. Family would have believed in me even without the billions. Family would have asked about my dreams instead of dismissing them. Family would have seen me for who I am, not who they wanted me to be. Her hand fell away. And now, I checked my phone as another alert came in. Now I have a meeting with the governor about making our city the next major tech hub. Feel free to tell Mom and Dad. I'm sure they'll suddenly be very interested in my situation. As I walked out, leaving Emma in that small conference room, Maya fell into step beside me. Your parents are holding another family meeting tonight, she said, checking her tablet. Your aunt's already called 3 reporters trying to claim she mentored you. I smiled. Let them meet. Let them talk. Success is the best revenge, but silence Silence is the best response. The elevator doors opened to reveal Sarah Chen waiting with a group of international investors. "Ready to change the world?" she asked. I straightened my discount blazer, now knowing it would be featured in tomorrow's business pages as tech's new power look. "Always," I replied. "After all, the best innovations come from people everyone else overlooked." Behind me, I could hear Emma's expensive heels clicking toward the exit, the sound echoing like all their years of judgment and dismissal. But I wasn't that overlooked little sister anymore. I was the future. And the future, like success, belongs to those who build it for themselves. 1 month after the Forbes article changed everything, I sat in my office reviewing the latest market reports. Neuratech's stock had doubled. Our AI technology was being called revolutionary by industry leaders, and my carefully maintained privacy had been replaced by constant public attention. Maya appeared in my doorway. "Your father's downstairs." I didn't look up from my screen. The same answer as yesterday. "He's different today. No Mercedes, no power suit. He's wearing jeans." That made me pause. Richard Bennett, CEO of Bennett Global Consulting, wearing jeans? In public? "He's been waiting in the lobby for 2 hours," Maya added. "Just sitting there, watching people work." I pulled up the lobby security feed. There he was, my father, looking smaller somehow in casual clothes, holding a worn leather briefcase I'd never seen before. Send him up. While waiting, I studied the collection of newspaper headlines framed on my wall. Neuratech announces breakthrough in quantum AI. Tech's newest billion-dollar CEO refuses family's attempts to take credit. Alexander Bennett. Success doesn't need permission. The last one was from an interview where I had finally addressed the family situation publicly. The reporter had asked why I kept my success secret from my family. My response went viral. Success doesn't need permission, validation, or family approval. It just needs vision and persistence. Dad entered quietly, so unlike his usual commanding presence. He took in my office slowly. The whiteboards covered in complex algorithms, the global market tickers, the view of the city he thought he knew. "Your mother keeps setting a place for you at dinner," he said finally. "Every Thursday night, just in case." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. He sat, placing the old briefcase in his lap. "I've been thinking," he continued, "about your 5th grade science fair." Of all the things he could have said, this wasn't what I expected. "You built a primitive neural network. Used it to predict weather patterns. Everyone else had volcanoes made of baking soda or plants growing toward light. You had algorithms." He smiled faintly. "You won first place, but I missed it. Had a board meeting. I remember. You know what I don't remember? Ever asking you to explain how it worked, or why you were interested in AI, or what you dreamed of creating." He opened the briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. "So I did some research." He spread them on my desk. Patents, academic papers, early business proposals. My work, dating back years. "You filed your first patent at 19, he said. Created your first AI protocol at 22. Launched 3 successful startups under different names before Neuratech. All while we thought you were just." He trailed off. "Finding myself," I supplied. "Being difficult." He looked up, meeting my eyes. "We were wrong. I was wrong." The silence stretched between us, heavy with years of missed connections. "Did you know," he said finally, "that your mother has started taking coding classes? Basic stuff, but she says she wants to understand what you built. Emma's been reading about AI ethics. Even James. James has been trying to pitch to my competitors. I interrupted, using his connection to me as leverage. Dad's face fell. I didn't know that. There's a lot you didn't know, didn't ask, didn't want to see. He nodded slowly. Your mother wants to host a family dinner to celebrate your success. Like the last family dinner? Were you all gathered to intervene in my situation? No. He pulled out one more paper from his briefcase, like this. It was an old photograph. Me at that 5th grade science fair, standing proudly next to my neural network display. Small, serious, and absolutely certain about my path. When did we stop seeing you? He asked quietly. When did we replace pride with judgment? I studied the photo, remembering that day. The excitement of creation, the joy of making something new. The disappointment when my parents missed the ceremony. You know, I said, that project predicted weather patterns with 76% accuracy. Pretty impressive for a 5th grader. Want to know what Neurotech's current accuracy rate is? He looked up, interested despite himself. What is it? 99.997%. I turned my monitor around, showing him our latest test results. We're not just predicting weather anymore. We're modeling climate changes, market trends, population movements. We're helping governments prepare for natural disasters before they happen. Helping businesses adapt to changes before they hit. Saving lives, Dad. For the first time, I saw real understanding dawn in his eyes. Not just of the money or success, but of what I'd actually built. Show me, he said softly. Help me understand. I hesitated. Then I stood up and walked to the largest whiteboard. It starts with a basic neural pathway. I began drawing. But then we added quantum processing. For the next hour, I explained my life's work to my father. He asked questions, good ones, showing he'd done real research. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. I have another confession, he said finally. Bennett Global is struggling. The old consulting model isn't working anymore. Companies want AI integration, predictive analytics. I know, I said. Your stock dropped 40% last quarter. He laughed suddenly. Of course you know. You probably knew before I did. He straightened in his chair. I'm not here to ask for help, or money, or connections. I'm here to say I'm proud of you. Not because you're successful, but because you had the courage to build something revolutionary while we were all too blind to see it. I walked to the window, looking out at the city where I'd built my empire in secret. The next family dinner, I said slowly. What if we held it here? Here? In my building. I'll give them a tour first. Show them what I actually do. No more assumptions, no more judgments. Just reality. They'd like that, he said. Then carefully. I'd like that. One condition. I turned back to face him. Everyone comes on their own merits. No plus ones. James isn't welcome. He nodded. Understood. Emma's? Figuring that out anyway. His latest investment scheme cost them heavily. I know. I'd bought their debt last week. Through a subsidiary. His eyebrows rose. You did? Why? Because Emma's still my sister. She needs to clean up her own mess. But I won't let her drown. I sat back down. Family is complicated. Success doesn't fix that. It just gives you the power to set better boundaries. Dad stood, gathering his briefcase. Thursday at 7? Thursday at 7. Tell Mom to wear comfortable shoes. It's a big building. At the door, he paused. That article quote, about success not needing permission. I'm framing it for my office, to remind me what real leadership looks like. After he left, Maya brought in my afternoon schedule and a fresh coffee. Your mother's already called 3 times about Thursday, she said. And Emma sent flowers. Donate the flowers, I replied. And Maya, clear my Thursday evening schedule. It's time to show my family what I really built. That night, working late as usual, I added one more framed article to my wall. Tech CEO redefines family business. Success is the best teacher. Below it, I hung that old science fair photo. The little girl with big dreams who became the woman who changed the tech world. Sometimes the hardest part of success isn't building an empire. It's teaching others to see you for who you've become, not who they assumed you'd be. And as I looked out over my city, watching the lights twinkle in buildings where my technology was already at work, I smiled. Thursday would be interesting. But this time, I wouldn't be the one proving anything. I'd already done that. Now it was their turn to learn. The day started like any other Tuesday, except this one had been marked on our family calendar for weeks in bold red letters. Mandatory family meeting, 7 p.m. My mother's handwriting, always perfect, always demanding. I knew what was coming. They'd been building up to this intervention for months. I pulled into the familiar circular driveway of my parents' estate in my beat-up Honda Civic, deliberately parking it right next to my sister Amanda's gleaming Tesla. The contrast wasn't lost on anyone. That was the point. I checked my phone one last time. 6:57 p.m. 3 text messages from my realtor Marcus. All set for tomorrow. Paperwork complete. Congratulations on your new acquisition. I smiled faintly, tucked the phone away, and walked up to the grand entrance. I'd grown up passing through. Before I could reach for the doorbell, the heavy oak door swung open. There stood my mother, Catherine Peterson, perfectly coiffed as always, her disapproving gaze sliding from my sensible flats to my simple black dress. "You're late," she said, though we both knew I wasn't. "Hello to you too, Mom." The living room was already full. Dad sat in his usual leather armchair, pretending to read the Wall Street Journal, but really just avoiding eye contact. Amanda perched on the edge of the designer sofa, manicured fingers tapping against her phone screen. Her husband James lounged beside her, radiating that particular smugness that came with marrying into money and never letting anyone forget it. "Olivia," Amanda said, barely glancing up. "We were starting to wonder if you'd show." I took a seat in the straight-backed chair clearly left for me, the only uncomfortable piece of furniture in the room. Strategic positioning, classic Mom. Place the target where everyone can stare them down. "Now that we're all here," Mom began, standing in the center of the room like a prosecutor addressing a jury. "We need to discuss Olivia's situation." My situation? That's what they've been calling it for months now. Choosing to leave my 6-figure corporate job to start my own business. Moving out of my luxury condo into a modest apartment. Driving a practical car instead of leasing something flashy. Living within my means while I built something of my own. "Your father and I have been patient," Mom continued, each word precise as a knife cut. "We understood you needed to get this entrepreneurial phase out of your system. But it's gone on long enough. You're becoming an embarrassment to this family." I didn't react. I'd learned long ago that showing emotion in this house was like bleeding in shark-infested waters. "The charity gala is next month," Amanda chimed in. Everyone's asking what you do now. And it's mortifying having to explain that my sister lives in some tiny apartment and drives a car that's practically falling apart. James nodded sagely. Image is everything in this circle, Olivia. You know that. We've decided, Mom declared, that it's time for you to come back to reality. Your father has spoken to his friends at Goldman. They're willing to overlook this gap in your resume. You can start next month. I looked at Dad, who suddenly found his newspaper fascinating. And, Mom added with a tight smile, we found you a lovely condo in the right neighborhood. Much more suitable than that hovel you're living in now. James's friend Michael is single, and he's already expressed interest in getting to know you better. Of course he had. Michael Lambert, trust fund baby turned real estate developer, known for his ability to lose other people's money in spectacular fashion. I'd done my research on him months ago when he first approached me about investment opportunities. Well? Mom prompted when I didn't immediately respond with gratitude. What do you have to say for yourself? I opened my mouth to respond, but my phone chose that moment to buzz. The caller ID read, Marcus Reynolds. Perfect timing. Excuse me, I said politely. I need to take this. Before Mom could object, I put the call on speaker. Miss Peterson. Marcus's professional voice filled the room. I'm calling to confirm that the sale has been finalized. Congratulations. You are now the official owner of the Wellington complex. All 300 luxury units, including the penthouse currently occupied by your family, are under your sole ownership. Would you like me to proceed with the planned rent adjustments we discussed? The silence that followed was absolute. Amanda's phone slipped from her fingers. James's smug smile froze and cracked. Dad's newspaper lowered slowly, revealing wide eyes. And Mom looked like she'd been slapped. The Wellington, she whispered. But we live there. Yes, I said calmly. You do. And now I own it. You see, while they thought I was failing, I was building. While they pitied me for living frugally, I was saving and investing. While they mocked my tiny business, it had grown into a property management empire, quietly acquiring buildings across the city. The Wellington was just the latest and most personal acquisition. But how? Amanda stammered. Those units cost millions. Funny thing about living below your means, I said, standing up. You end up having means beyond what people expect. I turned to Marcus's voice on the speaker. No rent adjustments needed right now, Marcus. Let's talk tomorrow about the renovation plans. Of course, Miss Peterson. Congratulations again. I ended the call and looked at my family's stunned faces. Now, about that charity gala next month. I think I will attend after all. As the owner of the venue, I should probably make an appearance, don't you think? Mom sank into Dad's armchair, her perfect posture crumbling. Olivia, I don't understand. No, I said softly. You never did. And that's exactly why we're here. I picked up my sensible handbag and headed for the door, pausing only briefly. Oh, and Mom? About that hovel I live in? I own that building too, along with half the block. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an early meeting tomorrow with my property management team. The sound of my practical shoes on their marble floor echoed to the silence. As I reached for the door handle, I heard Dad's voice for the first time that evening. Olivia, wait. But I was already walking out, smiling as I climbed into my practical Honda Civic. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's success they never saw coming. The next morning dawned crisp and clear. sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my actual office. Not the small rental space my family thought I worked from, but the entire top floor of the Peterson Business Center downtown. Another property they didn't know I owned. Yet, I sat at my desk, reviewing the Wellington acquisition documents while my assistant, Sarah, briefed me on the morning schedule. "Your mother has called 6 times since 6 a.m., she said, sliding a coffee across my desk. "Your sister tried 4 times, and your father's secretary called to set up an urgent lunch meeting." I took a sip of the coffee, perfect as always. "And?" "I followed your instructions. No calls forwarded, no meetings scheduled." "Good." I pulled up the Wellington's financial records on my dual monitors. "Have Marcus send over the current lease agreements for all Wellington tenants, especially the penthouse." My phone buzzed again. "Amanda. Olivia. This isn't funny anymore. Mom hasn't slept. Dad's furious. You need to explain yourself. We're family. You can't just..." I let the message fade into my growing collection of unread texts. Family. Funny how that word only mattered when they needed something from me. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. "Miss Peterson? The board members are ready for you." I stood, straightening my tailored charcoal suit. Designer, but subtly so. No flashy labels needed when you own the building. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. 12 of the city's top real estate developers, all men over 50, all watching me with new eyes. No longer the naive little girl they dismissed for years. Now they saw me as what I'd become, their largest competitor. "Gentlemen," I began, taking my seat at the head of the table. "Let's discuss the future of downtown development." 2 hours later, I'd secured 3 new property deals and established myself as a force they couldn't ignore. As the last board member left, Marcus lingered. "Your father's firm called," he said carefully. "They're interested in a partnership on the Riverside development." I smiled. Of course they were. That project would reshape the city's skyline, and they just realized who controlled it. "Tell them all partnership inquiries need to go through proper channels. No family favors." Marcus nodded, then hesitated. "There's something else. Your sister's husband, James. He's been asking questions about your other properties, trying to map out your portfolio. Let him try." I turned to look out over the city, my city, increasingly. He'll only find what I want him to find. By afternoon, the family grapevine was buzzing. My phone showed 30 missed calls, dozens of messages, and one very interesting email from James to his business partners. "Need dirt on Olivia's companies. Anything you can find." I forwarded it to my legal team with one note. "Watch him." At 3 p.m., the expected text from Amanda arrived. "Mom's organizing an emergency family dinner tonight. 7 p.m. You have to come." I replied for the first time that day. "Can't. Board meeting for my newest acquisition. Send my regrets." There was no board meeting. Instead, I had a private dinner scheduled with George Lambert, Michael's father and the city's biggest developer, the man my mother had been trying to get an audience with for years. The restaurant was exclusive, the kind of place that didn't list prices, because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. George was already seated when I arrived. "Olivia." He stood, greeting me warmly. I have to admit, I've been looking forward to this. Not often someone builds an empire right under my nose without me noticing. I took my seat, accepting the wine list from the sommelier. Sometimes the best moves are the quiet ones. Indeed, he studied me thoughtfully. "Your family seems quite surprised by your success." My son Michael was particularly interested in understanding how you managed it. Was he? I selected a wine, handed the list back. And here I thought he was only interested in losing other people's money in questionable developments. George laughed. Actually laughed. Sharp tone to match that sharp mind. You know he's not used to being turned down. He's not used to a lot of things, like due diligence or profitable investments. The wine arrived, deep red and perfect. George raised his glass. To new partnerships? I met his eyes. That depends. Are you ready to discuss the Marina District project? His eyebrows rose. He'd kept that project under wraps for months. How did you? I make it my business to know things, Mr. Lambert. Like the fact that you're struggling to find financing since the environmental survey came back. I have a solution, if you're interested. For the next 2 hours, we talked business. Real business, not the social climbing my family thought I'd abandoned my career for. By dessert, we'd outlined a partnership that would transform the city's waterfront and make us both considerably richer. As we wrapped up, George's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and chuckled. Your mother just invited me to dinner next week. Quite insistent about it. Let me guess, she mentioned her talented daughter would be there. Actually, she mentioned your sister, Amanda. Something about her brilliant investment strategies. I couldn't help but laugh. Mom was still playing matchmaker, still pushing Amanda forward as the family success story. She hadn't realized the game had changed. Give her my regrets, I said, standing. I'll be in Singapore next week, closing a deal. George stood as well, extending his hand. You know, Olivia, I've been in this business 30 years. Made my fortune the old-fashioned way. Family money and connections. But you? You built this yourself, in secret, while your own family underestimated you. That's remarkable. I shook his hand firmly. Thank you, George. Though I should thank them too. Being underestimated can be a powerful advantage. Outside, my driver waited with the car, not the Honda Civic my family knew, but a sleek black Mercedes I kept for business meetings. As we pulled away, my phone lit up with another message. This time from my father. Olivia, please. We need to talk. Things don't have to be like this. We're family. I stared at those last 2 words for a long moment. Family. They kept using that word, but I don't think it meant what they thought it meant. Opening my laptop, I pulled up the Wellington lease agreements. Time to review the terms of my family's penthouse rental. After all, business was business, and I'd learned from the best how to separate family from finances. Tomorrow would bring more calls, more demands, more attempts to regain control. But for now, I had contracts to review and an empire to run. Let them have their emergency family dinner without me. I had bigger tables to sit at. 1 week later, I stood in my office, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold. Singapore had been productive. 3 new deals closed, 2 international partnerships secured. But the real drama was waiting for me back home. Sarah appeared in the doorway. They're all here. I nodded, taking one last look at the empire I'd built. In the main conference room? Yes, your mother, father, sister, James, and Mr. Lambert. That last name made me pause. George Lambert? No, Sarah smiled slightly. Michael. He insisted on being included. Said something about family interests. Of course he did. Mother's matchmaking hadn't died, even after everything. If anything, my success had made her more determined to push us together. The conference room fell silent as I entered. They sat around the massive oak table. Mother in her perfect Channel suit, Dad looking tired but determined, Amanda clutching James's arm like a lifeline, and Michael Lambert, trying to project confidence he didn't have. "Thank you all for coming," I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. "I understand you have concerns." Mother spoke first, her voice tight. "Concerns? You disappear for a week, ignore our calls, and now we find out you're partnering with George Lambert on the Marina project. This isn't like you, Olivia." I raised an eyebrow. "Actually, Mother, this is exactly like me. You just never bothered to notice." "Now see here," James leaned forward, all false authority. "We've been looking into your companies. The structures are unnecessarily complex. Multiple holding companies, offshore accounts. What are you hiding?" "Nothing," I said calmly. "I just learned early on to protect my interests. Speaking of which," I pressed a button on the intercom. "Sarah, please send in the auditors." The door opened, and two men in suits entered, carrying thick folders. James's face went pale. "What is this?" he demanded. "An audit, James, of all attempts to access my company records in the past week, including your rather clumsy efforts to hack into our servers." I opened one of the folders. "Section 47B of your Wellington lease agreement specifically prohibits corporate espionage against the building owner." That would be me. Amanda gasped. "James, what did you do?" "Nothing illegal," he protested. "I was protecting our family interests." "Your family interests?" I smiled coldly. "Or your hidden debts?" "Yes, James, I know about those too. The gambling losses, the failed investments, the money you've been siphoning from Amanda's trust fund." Amanda turned to him, face shocked. "What is she talking about?" "Don't listen to her." James stood up, pointing at me. "She's trying to turn us against each other. She's just jealous because she had to scratch and claw her way up while you what?" I cut in. "While you lost millions? While you lived off my sister's money? Please, continue." Mother intervened. "Olivia, stop this. We're family. Whatever James has done." "Family?" I've opened another folder. "Like when you tried to pressure the Wellington's management company to break their contract with me once you realized I was the buyer. Or when you called George Lambert to warn him against partnering with me." Dad finally spoke up. "We were protecting you. You don't understand the business world." "No, Dad, you don't understand. Not anymore." I stood, walking to the window. "While you were all playing social games, I was building something real. Every property you thought was out of your reach, I own it. Every deal you couldn't close, I funded it. Every client you lost, they came to me." Michael Lambert chose that moment to speak. "This is why you should have partnered with me when you had the chance. Together, we could." "Could what?" I turned back to face them. "Lose money like you always do. Tell me, Michael, does your father know you're here? Does he know you're trying to interfere with our Marina project deal?" His face reddened. "My father doesn't control me." "No, but I could. One phone call about your attempted corporate espionage, and your family would cut you off completely. Shall I make that call?" He fell silent. I pressed another button, and a screen descended from the ceiling. "Let me show you something." Images appeared. Properties, developments, financial charts. This is what I've built. Not through family connections or inherited wealth, but through work. Real work. The numbers were staggering. Even Mother looked shocked. "The Wellington?" I continued. "That was just the beginning. I own half the commercial real estate in the business district, 3 luxury residential complexes, the new downtown development project, and yes, the marina project with George Lambert. But why keep it secret? Amanda asked quietly. Why let us think you were struggling? I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the designer clothes and perfect makeup, I saw something new. Fear. Not of me, but of her own situation. Because, Amanda, you all needed to see something. Not just my success, but your own prejudices. How quickly you dismissed me. How easily you believed I was failing just because I wasn't living by your rules. I sat back down, opening one final folder. Now we have decisions to make. First, the Wellington. Your leases are up for renewal next month. James's corporate espionage voids his automatically, but the rest of you? You wouldn't evict your own family, Mother said, but her voice wavered. No, I agreed. I wouldn't. Instead, I'm offering you a choice. I slid documents across the table. New leases, fair market rate. No special treatment, no family discounts. Or what? Dad asked. Or you start treating me like family. Real family. Not someone to be controlled or married off or pushed aside. An equal. The room was silent as they looked at the papers. Amanda, I said softly, there's a position open in my company. Vice President of Client Relations. You're qualified, and more importantly, you're smarter than the role your husband and our parents pushed you into. It's yours if you want it. James started to protest, but Amanda held up her hand. I want to hear more. As for you, Dad, I continued, Goldman isn't the only game in town. My international division could use your experience. As a consultant, not a controller. He picked up the contract, reading carefully. And Mother, I smiled slightly, the charity gala you love so much. The venue's paid for. Permanently. Consider it a gift. From one businesswoman to another. She blinked rapidly, touching her perfect makeup. James, Michael, there's the door. Your security passes have been revoked. They started to argue, but my security team was already there, waiting quietly. The rest of you have 24 hours to decide, not about the leases or jobs, but about what kind of family we want to be. One that tears each other down, or one that builds each other up. I stood, gathering my papers. I have a dinner meeting with George Lambert. Amanda, if you're interested in that VP position, join us. We can discuss the details. As I walked out, I heard Amanda's chair scrape back. I'll get my coat. Mother called after me. Olivia, wait. I paused at the door. Yes. The Honda Civic. Was that just for show too? I smiled. No, Mother. That's my car. Because success isn't about what you drive or where you live. It's about what you build. I checked my watch. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an empire to run. The next morning, I arrived early at my office. Sarah met me with coffee and updates. Amanda accepted the position. Your father's reviewing the consulting contract. And your mother? Yes, she's in the lobby. Says she wants to learn. Really learn, this time. I looked out at my city, thinking about family power and the quiet strength it takes to succeed on your own terms. Send her up, I said. It's time for some real family business. Sometimes the biggest victories aren't in what you own, but in what you change. And as I watched the sun rise over my city, I knew the real work, the work of rebuilding my family into something stronger, was just beginning. But this time, we'd built it together, on my terms. I knew it was coming the moment David Morgan strutted into the office that morning, his expensive Italian shoes clicking against the hardwood floors like a countdown. 6 months as my manager, and he'd been gunning for me since day one. Not because I was bad at my job. No, quite the opposite. He was threatened because I was too good at it. Sarah, my office. Now, his voice carried across the open-plan workspace, deliberately loud enough for everyone to hear. Classic power play. I caught Jessica from accounting giving me a sympathetic look as I stood up, smoothing my charcoal pencil skirt. I'd spent the last 3 months preparing for this moment, ever since I overheard him in the break room. We need younger blood, fresh perspectives. These legacy employees are deadweight. Legacy employee. That's what he called anyone who'd been at Meridian Technologies longer than him. Anyone who remembered when the company actually innovated instead of just chasing quarterly profits. His office was all glass and chrome, trying too hard to look Silicon Valley in our decidedly East Coast firm. He didn't offer me a seat. Another power play. Sarah, he began, adjusting his Rolex. New, probably bought with the bonus he'd gotten for cutting department costs. We need to discuss your performance. I kept my face neutral, of course. He pulled out a folder, thick with papers I knew he'd never actually read. Your productivity metrics are concerning. Project completion rates below target. Excessive time spent on non-priority tasks. He looked up, smirking. Care to explain? I could have explained. Could have told him about the hundreds of hours I'd spent quietly fixing the catastrophic errors his innovative new system had created. Could have mentioned how our biggest client, Anderson Global, had been on the verge of walking away until I started working behind the scenes to salvage the relationship. Instead, I simply said, I believe my work speaks for itself. His smirk widened. Yes, it does. And that's why, effective immediately, we're terminating your employment. Right on schedule. Pack your things, he continued, clearly enjoying himself. Your performance isn't up to our standards. Security will escort you out. I stood there, calm and collected, as he reached for his phone to call security. That's when both our computers chimed simultaneously. New email. From Michael Harrison, CEO. Subject: URGENT. Project Phoenix Success Priority. Hi. David's face froze mid-smirk as he read the first line. I didn't need to see his screen. I had the email memorized. Attention all staff. It is my great pleasure to announce the successful completion of Project Phoenix, a confidential initiative that has not only saved our relationship with Anderson Global, but has expanded it into a $40 million multi-year contract. Special recognition goes to Sarah Mitchell, whose innovative solutions and tireless dedication over the past 3 months have transformed a potential crisis into our biggest win of the year. The board has unanimously voted to promote her to Director of Strategic Operations, effective immediately. To address the rumors. Yes, Anderson Global had planned to terminate their contract due to systematic issues with our new processing system. Sarah identified these issues months ago and, working directly with my office, developed and implemented solutions that not only fixed the problems but revolutionized our entire approach. All department heads, please join us in the main conference room at 11 a.m. for a full briefing. Best regards, Michael Harrison, CEO, Meridian Technologies. The silence in David's office was deafening. His face had gone from smug to sheet white in seconds. I don't understand. Project Phoenix? Working with the CEO? That's impossible. You've been underperforming, missing deadlines. Missing your deadlines, I corrected quietly. The ones you set after repeatedly ignoring my warnings about the system flaws. But you're right about one thing. I wasn't focusing on your priorities. I was too busy saving the company from your mistakes. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. But the metrics were exactly where they needed to be for the real work to get done. I smiled, just slightly. You see, David, while you were focused on looking good in quarterly reports, I was focused on keeping our largest client from suing us for negligence. A client, I might add, that represents 60% of your precious annual bonus. The color began returning to his face, now shifting to red. This is some kind of mistake. Harrison couldn't have. You couldn't have. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael's executive assistant. Conference room ready. Michael wants you to lead the briefing. I checked my watch. 10:55 a.m. If you'll excuse me, I said, gathering my tablet. I have a meeting to run. Oh, and David? I paused at his door. Don't worry about having security escort me out. But you might want to update your resume. The board tends to frown on managers who try to fire the people saving their company. As I walked through the office, heads turned. Phones were buzzing everywhere as the email made its rounds. Jessica from accounting gave me a thumbs up. Mark from it nodded respectfully. And there, by the conference room door, stood Michael Harrison himself. Ready to shake things up, Director Mitchell? I smiled, a real smile this time. You have no idea. Behind me, I could hear David's expensive Italian shoes clicking frantically across the hardwood as he rushed to figure out where it had all gone wrong. But I was already walking into the conference room, my own heels clicking with purpose. After all, we had a company to run, properly this time. The faces around the conference table showed a mix of shock, admiration, and in some cases, dawning horror as they realized how badly they'd misjudged me. But that's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you the perfect cover to get things done. And I was just getting started. The conference room felt different from this side of the table. I'd sat through countless meetings here, quietly observing from the back, while managers like David took credit for other people's work. Now, standing at the head of the table beside CEO Michael Harrison, I watched those same managers squirm in their seats. Before we begin, Michael addressed the room. I want to be clear about something. Project Phoenix wasn't just about saving a client. It was a test of our systems, our leadership, and our company culture. His eyes swept the room. Some of you passed. Many of you failed. I opened my laptop, connecting it to the main screen. The first slide appeared. Anderson Global Contract Termination Notice. Draft. Several managers flinched. 3 months ago, Anderson's CFO contacted me directly, not through official channels, but through a LinkedIn message. They were preparing to terminate their $100 million contract due to systematic failures in our new processing system. David, who'd slunk into the room last and taken a back seat, seemed to shrink further. What you're seeing, I continued, switching slides, is a complete analysis of the system failures. Errors that were reported, documented, and repeatedly ignored by management. Each bullet point landed like a shot. Each graph told a story of willful negligence. But that's impossible, interrupted Thomas from operations. Our quarterly reports showed all systems functioning within acceptable parameters. I smiled. Funny thing about parameters, they're only as good as the people setting them. I pulled up another slide. These are the real numbers, not the filtered data that made it to quarterly reports. The system wasn't just failing, it was actively corrupting client data. The room erupted in murmurs. I caught snippets. How did we miss this? Who approved these changes? David assured us. Ms. Mitchell. A sharp voice cut through the chaos. Victoria Pierce, our board chair, who I hadn't even noticed entering the room. Please continue. I nodded, advancing to the next slide. Project Phoenix had 3 phases. First, develop a parallel system to prevent further data corruption. Second, quietly recover and restore compromised data. Third, implement a complete overhaul of our processing architecture. Alone? Someone asked. You did all this alone? No, I said. I had help. Jessica from accounting, who stayed late every night cross-checking figures. Mark from IT, who wrote code on weekends. Junior staff who believed in doing things right instead of just doing them fast. I clicked again, and their names appeared on screen. 23 people, mostly lower-level employees, all overlooked by management. While some managers were focused on metrics and bonuses, I continued, these people were focused on saving our company. They deserve recognition and promotions. Victoria Pierce was taking notes. David was typing frantically on his phone. But the real hero of this story, I said, is sitting right there. I pointed to Raj Patel, a junior developer who looked startled at being called out. Raj identified the initial system flaw. He reported it through proper channels 7 times. Each time, he was ignored or told to stay in his lane. So he came to me. Raj sat up straighter as several heads turned his way. Which brings us to the future. I switched to the final slide. Anderson Global isn't just staying. They're tripling their contract on one condition. I paused, letting the tension build. They want a complete restructuring of our management approach. More collaboration, less hierarchy, more innovation, less politics. Michael stepped forward, which is why, effective immediately, we're announcing several changes. Sarah Mitchell is our new Director of Strategic Operations. Her first task, evaluating all current management positions. The room went very quiet. Some of you, I said, looking directly at David, will be invited to reapply for your positions. Others will be offered different roles more suited to your abilities. And some of you will be encouraged to seek opportunities elsewhere. David's phone clattered to the floor. You can't do this, he sputtered. I have contracts, agreements. Actually, Victoria Pierce spoke up. We've reviewed those agreements. Attempting to terminate an employee who's actively saving a $100 million client relationship. That's grounds for immediate dismissal. I almost felt sorry for David. Almost. Your new team assignments are being sent now. I announced as phones began buzzing around the room. If your name isn't on a team list, HR will be reaching out this afternoon. The meeting ended in controlled chaos. Some managers rushed out, presumably to update their resumes. Others lingered, trying to catch my eye, probably remembering every time they dismissed my input or talked over me in meetings. As the room cleared, Rod approached hesitantly. Ms. Mitchell. Thank you for mentioning me. Thank you for having the courage to speak up, I replied. How would you like to lead our new systems integrity team? His face lit up. Really? But I'm just a junior. Not anymore. I handed him a folder. Your new contract. I expect great things. After he left, Michael and Victoria remained. Impressive presentation, Victoria said, but you've made some powerful enemies today. I nodded. I know, but I've also empowered some powerful allies. People who do the real work, who see the real problems, and who deserve real recognition. Speaking of recognition, Michael added, Anderson's CEO called. He wants to meet. Apparently, his daughter is graduating with a computer science degree, and he'd like to discuss our new mentorship program. The one we don't have yet. I smiled. The one you're going to build, he corrected. Along with restructuring our management, revamping our systems, and whatever else you see fit to fix. Careful, I warned. I might just take you up on that. Victoria laughed. I'm counting on it. She headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Sarah? David's office has a nice view. It's yours if you want it. I thought about it for a moment. Actually, I think that space would work better as a collaborative workspace for the development team. I'll keep my current desk. Better to be in the thick of things. She nodded approvingly. Smart. Very smart. As they left, I stayed behind, looking out over the city through the conference room windows. 15 minutes until my next meeting, this time with HR to discuss the new organizational structure. My phone buzzed with messages from employees at all levels, some congratulating me, others nervously asking about their positions. I answered each one personally. After all, I remembered what it felt like to be ignored by management. That stopped today. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Jessica from accounting stood there, grinning. So, boss, ready to shake things up? I picked up my laptop, straightening my shoulders. You have no idea. Get the team together. We've got a company to rebuild. David's office was already being cleaned out. Through the glass walls, I could see him packing his things, the expensive Italian shoes scuffed from his frantic pacing. As I walked past, he looked up, finally understanding what I'd known all along. Real power isn't about corner offices or fancy titles. It's about doing the work that matters, building the right relationships, and playing the long game. And I was just getting started. 3 months after the meeting that changed everything, I stood in what used to be David's office, now a vibrant collaborative workspace filled with developers, analysts, and the constant hum of actual innovation. The Italian hardwood floors had been replaced with practical carpet that dampened sound. The pretentious chrome fixtures were gone, making way for comfortable workstations and digital displays, showing real-time project metrics. Ms. Mitchell? My assistant Jack appeared at my shoulder. Anderson Global's CEO is here for the quarterly review, and you might want to see this first. He handed me his tablet, open to a business news site. The headline made me smile. Meridian Technologies revolutionizes NDUSTURI standards. Stock soars as competitors scramble to keep up. Below that was another headline, smaller but equally satisfying. Former Meridian manager David Morgan faces investigation over system cover-up. Conference room ready? I asked, handing back the tablet. Yes, but there's something else. Jack looked nervous. David's outside. Says he needs to talk to you before the meeting. Of course he was. I'd been wondering when this would happen. I found David in the reception area, his once immaculate appearance now slightly frayed. The Rolex was gone, replaced by something more modest. He stood when he saw me, smoothing his off-the-rack suit. Sarah, please. 5 minutes. I checked my watch. Genuine Cartier. A gift to myself after landing the Thompson Industries account last month. 3 minutes. He followed me to a small meeting room. Gone was the arrogant strut, replaced by an almost desperate energy. "I've been trying to reach you," he began. "My lawyers say, if you just explain to the board that I wasn't directly responsible for the system failures." "Directly responsible," I interrupted. "No, you just ignored 7 formal warnings, dismissed dozens of incident reports, and actively suppressed information that could have prevented the crisis, all while taking credit for other people's work and threatening anyone who challenged you." "I was under pressure," he protested. "The quarterly targets, the board's expectations. We were all under pressure, David. The difference is how we handled it. You chose to fake reports and bully subordinates. I chose to actually solve problems." He slumped in his chair. "My reputation is ruined. No tech company will touch me now." "Actions have consequences." I stood up. "But since you came all this way, I'll give you some free advice. Start over. Learn to code. Build something real. That's what I did while you were busy playing politics. Is everything all right?" Jack appeared at the door, right on schedule. "Fine," I said. "Mr. Morgan was just leaving. Oh, and David? The SEC investigators might have some questions about those altered quarterly reports. I'd suggest being honest this time." As security escorted him out, I headed to the main conference room where Anderson Global's executive team waited. But instead of going in, I stopped at Ra's desk first. "Ready for your big moment?" He adjusted his tie nervously. "Are you sure about this? I mean, presenting to the CEO. You built the new security protocol. You should present it." I smiled. "Remember what I told you about owning your success?" He nodded, gathering his materials. "No more hiding in the shadows." Exactly. The conference room had changed too. The imposing mahogany table had been replaced with a modular setup that encouraged collaboration. The walls displayed real-time system metrics, actual ones this time, not the filtered version David had preferred. Anderson's CEO, James Anderson himself, stood as we entered. "Sarah. And this must be the famous Raj Patel I've heard so much about." "Mr. Anderson." Raj shook his hand firmly. "I'm excited to show you the new security features. And I'm excited to see them. By the way, Sarah, my daughter starts her internship next week. The mentorship program you've set up is exactly what she needs." I took my seat as Rod began his presentation. Watching him, confident and articulate, I felt a surge of pride. This was what real leadership looked like, not hoarding power, but nurturing it in others. The doors opened quietly, and Victoria Pierce slipped in with Michael Harrison. They just returned from a board meeting where, I knew, they'd finalized some major changes. Ra's presentation was flawless. When he finished, James Anderson was beaming. Impressive. Very impressive. In fact, he glanced at his team, who nodded. "We'd like to discuss expanding our contract. Again, your new approach to system architecture is exactly what our international divisions need." Michael stepped forward. "Actually, James, that ties in perfectly with our news." He nodded to Victoria. "Sarah," she said, "the board has unanimously voted to create a new position, Chief Innovation Officer. Your name was the only one considered." The room fell silent. Even I was surprised by this one. "The title comes with a seat on the board," she continued, "and complete autonomy to implement your management philosophy across all divisions. Interested?" I looked around the room, at Raj, proudly standing by his presentation, at James Anderson, who trusted my vision when others doubted, at my team members watching through the glass walls, the ones who'd worked in the shadows with me all those months. "On one condition," I said. The mentorship program becomes a full department. Every employee gets a chance to rise based on merit, not politics. And we create a fast track for identifying and promoting hidden talent. Done, Michael and Victoria said simultaneously. Later that evening, I walked through the office as the sun set over the city. The space hummed with energy. Developers collaborating on new projects, junior staff confidently presenting ideas, managers actually listening. Jessica appeared beside me. Hard to believe it's only been 3 months. Sometimes the biggest changes happen quietly, I replied. Speaking of changes, she handed me a folder. Remember that system analysis you asked for? Turns out 3 of our competitors are using the same flawed architecture David implemented here. Are they now? I smiled. How interesting. Get the team together tomorrow. I think it's time for Project Phoenix to spread its wings. Taking over the industry, she teased. No, I said, watching my team, my company, in action. Just making it better. One system at a time. My phone buzzed. A message from Victoria. Board meeting tomorrow. Time to shake up the industry. I typed back, count on it. As I headed to my modest but comfortable office, still my original desk, just with a better chair, I passed the wall where we'd hung our new company motto. Innovation happens in the shadows until it steps into the light. Below it, in smaller text, success isn't about who takes credit. It's about who does the work. David's expensive Italian shoes had left scuff marks on the floor that first day. We'd left them there, a subtle reminder of what happens when style matters more than substance. Now they were barely visible under the feet of people too busy doing real work to care about status symbols. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new projects, new opportunities to transform the industry. But tonight, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of possibility, I knew one thing for certain. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success, it's creating a legacy that makes success possible for others. And I was just getting started. Jack appeared one last time. Your car's ready. Though, are you sure you don't want to upgrade from the Honda? As CIO, you could afford something more. The Honda stays, I said firmly. It's got good mileage, runs perfectly, and never pretends to be something it's not. I picked up my bag. Besides, I'm saving my money for something better. The new Tech Academy? He guessed. I nodded. Next month, we'd open the Meridian Technology Academy, offering free coding boot camps to overlooked talent. The first class was already selected, including David's former assistant, who'd secretly been coding brilliant solutions while he took credit for others' work. Success, real success, isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving your believers right. And as I drove home in my reliable Honda, passing gleaming office towers and bustling tech startups, I smiled thinking about tomorrow's board meeting. Because while David had been focused on looking powerful, I'd been focused on becoming powerful. The difference? I planned to use that power to lift others up, not keep them down. After all, true innovation doesn't happen in corner offices with expensive shoes and fake reports. It happens in the quiet moments, in the late nights and early mornings, in the determination of people who choose to build rather than boast. And we were building something revolutionary.